morning. Welcome to the July 5th, 2024 meeting of the Standing Policy Committee on Finance and Economic Development. I'm Councillor Jeff Bawadi and I'm the committee's chair. With me this morning, we have committee members, Councillor Janice Lutz from the Waverley West Ward, Councillor Jason Schreier from Elmwood East Kildonan, and Councillor John Orlando from River Heights, Fort Garry. We also have members of our public service with us here this morning. Our CFO is Tracy Graham, and our senior committee clerk is Carly Dolsky. At this time, I'd like to acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Innu, and Dakota peoples, and in the natural homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation, Treaty 3 territory. Councillor Orlando, could you move that the minutes of the meeting held on June 14, 2024 be taken as read and confirmed? So be it. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, delegations.
Perfect. So first up, we have David Grant joining us over Zoom today. We're speaking to report 6. Mr. Grant, you're now live in committee. You'll have up to 10 minutes for your presentation.
Hi. I'll be very brief. Can you hear me okay?
Morning, David.
Morning. Anyway, the on topic 6, the steps laid out by staff in the agenda item 6 are logical. They're easy to support. I understand that you and the mayor are concerned with the deficit, but there it is, still staring us in the face. It is clear to all that council has been unwilling to just say no for too many years to non-essential spending, non-core spending. Until outreach hands are withdrawn not full of taxpayer money, no amount of delay of transfers and all the good stuff in topic 6 will fix the deficit problem. Since the last election, I believe that mine has been the only voice here to ask consistently that non-core spending be reduced. Others know that spending decisions are the problem. They just choose not to say so in delegation here. And I'll just offer those comments and thank you very much for the time.
Thank you, David. I know some of the challenges are people have different priorities, different things that they consider core. What do you consider, what do you feel that we could be cutting as non-core?
Let's see. I guess this week we had the example where, or recently we had groups that were wanting their paid for, third-party groups wanting their staff paid for by the city. And the city said, no, we'll help you with a project. And they had some protesters and City Hall backed down and went with full funding. So I would say that paying for staff for advocacy groups is probably non-core. Painting lines on roads is core, and plowing snow and clearing streets and rebuilding streets, those are all core parts of city operation. So that I would draw a line there. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Schreier?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Grant. You said something about you're the only one, and I couldn't quite make out what you're talking about. What did you say? Sorry.
Oh, yeah, I meant of the people, if you listen to the YouTubes long enough, the city business at SPCs, you find that almost all the people speaking are in support of spending in a program. And I recall that there are a number of cases where I've said that we should, this is not worth it. The money spent to cross Provencher. I crossed at the existing crosswalk. You want one added, it's going to cost money. So I've been the one saying this is non-core. This will not give us good value for money. And I've been the one saying that we should cut back on the non-core stuff. All the stuff the city does has goodness to it. There's merit to it. But we can't afford everything in the world. And that's all I meant is of the people who come to council to speak, most are not saying spend less. And most have not been doing it as many years as I have. Thanks.
Would you recognize, Mr. Grant, that when people come here, the nature of it tends to be, the pattern is, it tends to be that they're here for the most part, almost always in favor, on behalf of a specific cause, issue, organization, interest group, and therefore they're advocating on behalf of funding for that particular organization, interest group, general priority or specific priority, and that therefore they're saying they're not saying, they're not trying to fix the entire budget. They're just saying prioritize hours. Would you say that's a fair general comment?
Certainly, yes. And on the other hand, when they're coming to talk about budget, as you say, they're there as advocates. People go into a store not to say how the store should be run. They go to the store to get something. And the people who are lobbying for city council to do something tend to be the ones wanting more spending. But just the opportunity is there when we're talking about budget. That happens every year. And most people don't go to the budget meeting saying spend less. And that was all, just a comment. Thanks.
I appreciate that, David. And again, I've certainly been on the record, suggesting that perhaps the people that come to City Hall aren't representative of the public overall. So appreciate your comments.
Yes. Thank you.
Any other questions? Hear none. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, the first item is the quarterly update from Economic Development Winnipeg. Mr. Kuffner is not in Winnipeg at the moment, or holidays at least. We recently had a council lunch and learn session. I think we were all there, and that was really beneficial. And I think there's talk about a follow-up. This report sort of got on the regular quarterly agenda back during COVID. We were concerned about, the nature of our tourism industry, of the economy in general. I guess the question is, any thoughts about the ongoing relationship between this committee publicly and EDW? Councilor Lukes.
So, yeah, I'm really pleased with the update that we had from him when we went. I think you were there. Were you there? So, and I've talked to him since from that. So I'm okay with actually maybe
Semi-annually, twice a year, maybe?
yeah, if that, even like once a year, in my opinion. But I think that he's got a different approach to reaching out and talking to councillors and helping us sort of, understand what's happening economic development wise, so that we make decisions or vote. So I'm actually okay with once a year.
Councillor Orlando.
I'm not.
Okay.
Maybe quarterly is a little much, sure. But what I still found, even at that seminar, I'm not sure what they're doing. I'm meeting with them as well. They talk about leads. They talk about certain initiatives. It was all very lovely. But what are they delivering? What businesses are actually they're delivering to Winnipeg in tourism? So we do fund them quite a bit of money. So I think it's warranted us for the public purse to make sure that they, instead of talking about their spreadsheets and how they track different leads, which is all impressive. What I want to see is what value are we getting for the money that we're giving them. In the past, we had no idea. Then they come by with a matrix or something. Great, but is it actually producing jobs in the city of Winnipeg and economic development? I'm still not 100% sure. I'm going to meet with them and say this is what council needs, is to know exactly, not about your systems and all your great staff, but they have great staff there. But I'd like to see what's the impact of our millions of dollars that we fund them to bring in business, which is a job or tourism. So once a year would be too little, but I could do twice a year.
Councillor, sure.
Well, I guess I'll wait, and I guess we don't need a quarterly, It was a substantial meeting, it was a really good meeting. But having said that, questions like Councillor Oracle has just raised, I believe would need to be answered, I guess, possibly on more than an annual basis. And so if there's going to be some sort of consensus of movement here to compromise, I didn't have a problem with quarterly reports personally.
Sure.
I didn't think they were that long.
No.
So I don't have a problem with quarterly. I mean, if we're going to reduce it, I wouldn't want to go less than twice a year.
Yeah. Do you have any specific requests for content? Maybe we can provide further direction to EDW in our direction as to what we'd like to see in those presentations.
I would be more than happy. Well, that's why I'm going to meet with them. What can they deliver? But for example, even though it's provincial, it's not really city, it has a high impact. How many jobs are created through your efforts? Ubisoft, there's 7 jobs per there for a bit. Nice. How many businesses did you bring in? How many businesses did you try to bring in that didn't work out? More of what's the actual direct impact, not the theories and the ideas. What are you actually bringing to town?
On the ground.
So on the ground. So jobs, They talk about capital, expansions. Sure, that's fine. So I think working with DDW to figure out.
I mean, I've seen those sort of things in the past, and I mean, I don't wanna, I should say this publicly, but I am sometimes, skeptical as to, they count them as new jobs and new things created in Winnipeg, but I think some of them would have happened regardless if it was for their efforts or not. Perhaps they were, they helped in some way facilitate, or they helped,
Sure.
make certain inroads, but would they have come anyway in some cases, I think.
And I think that's
Yes.
why we want to have the opportunity to question them on that data that they're providing, rather than just get a report.
Yeah,
So that's, again, why they need to be held accountable a bit more.
okay, so,
And if so, you want to do once a year, no. Okay, I said, Council, sorry, I'm willing to, because I think they are much more open and easier to talk to now. Twice a year, I can talk.
Yeah. so do we want, when do we want somebody to come back, or Ryan presumably to come back next? And perhaps we can, again, I think most of us are hoping to take some time off this summer, but should we ask for maybe October? And the idea being that we'll try to talk to him offline first, because if we don't get that nailed down.
Yeah, no, I want broadside. I've already mentioned it once to Ryan, but yeah, I think sometime in the fall.
So our new direction then, I guess, will be we will move these meetings to quarterly updates based on performance and results from the activities of economic development Winnipeg and tourism Winnipeg,
I believe they
trade shows and stuff
Yeah,
too.
yeah, get them all.
get them all, the importance that they're doing.
In a semi-annual basis, starting with the October 2024 meeting of the SBC Finance and Economic Development.
That's fine by me.
It's right with performance and results from activities from both EDW and.
Tourism Winnipeg.
Thank you.
That was most frank discussion on the.
Yeah. That was good.
So far as brief as it was.
Okay, everyone's comfortable with that motion then? From Councillor Norco, okay, all in favor? Opposed, carried, thank you. Center Venture Development Corporation Drive for 2022 annual report. I've spoken with Brad Zander, who's the, I guess,
Oh, yes.
chair of the committee now, and others. My understanding is they will have a new CEO on board very soon. The 2022 financial report is online. I guess they're just asking for a further layover at this point, unfortunately.
Even though it's online, they're waiting for a layover for this report.
This is the Drive for 2022 annual report.
Okay.
I guess there's still something that CAO is waiting for. I'm tired of seeing this personally, but
Yeah. Again, with Senator.
right now it's a bare bones operation. There's one person in the office.
Yes, so let's give it a little time to get.
But apparently there's a new mandate and there's a new CEO being brought on, so I mean, it looks like, this is being reprioritized, but
And a hefty amount of funding going to them for downtown redevelopment from the city. now.
Yep.
So that needs to be Huntly County.
sure does, yeah. Okay, so I just what I'm looking for is just a layover, I guess, to September.
So
Okay, thank you. All's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Okay, number 3, South Winnipeg Rec Campus, quarterly project status report.
Okay, joining us this morning is Brent Canuta, Manager of Project Delivery Assets and Project Management Department.
You don't want to sit by you.
Oh, I was waiting around for a manager here.
No worries.
Okay.
Morning.
Good morning.
Tracy doing
All right, so this is quarterly report number 9, as per the period ending April 30th of this year. So as many of you well know, in late 2023, the project team received a class 4 cost estimate. It put the forecasting cost of the project well over budget. And as a result, the design work on the rec facility has paused until we could take the issue up. And so in May, council addressed this over budget status with the provision of additional $23 million to the budget for the use of the recreation facility component, which is the sole civic asset in this project. The non-civic assets of the project, that being a childcare center and new vocational building for Pembina Trails collegiates, are also forecast to be over budget. And the province is currently reviewing their funding commitment as well as potential scope reduction alternatives for their interests. For a financial update, the approved contracts and contract costs provided in table 1 of the report have been updated to reflect our current expenditures, those being $6.12 million to the report date. Contract adjustments total just under $550,000, and those are all for consulting assignments and additional work. The budget amendment that increases the rec facility civic funding commitment from 71 to 94 million will be accounted for in the next reporting period. The decision came after the report been completed.
Sorry, what's gonna be reported in the next?
23.
The
Oh, the
budget,
23 million, sure.
yes. So adjustments to funding amounts or potential programmatic changes, including the provincial asset components, are subject to review relative to the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program Agreement. That agreement exists between the city, province of Manitoba, and the federal government. So just to be mindful that any changes to budget and scope have to be vetted through the agreement for subsequent approvals.
We vetted through, sorry?
Those, like, that agreement governs what is being delivered in the project and for the value of money. So if there are any adjustments that are made to the project, the parties have to reconvene and come to a revision. So that will be ongoing in the background. So the schedule in table 2 has been restated based on design work beginning early this summer, which it does. And we want to conclude that by the end of this year. This translates to the rec facility potentially opening in the beginning of 2027. In terms of risk assessments, we have no new risks ascertained. However, ongoing concerns for cost escalation and cost uncertainties need to be closely monitored through design advancement and cost refinement. With respect to project engagement, there have been no public engagement or stakeholder consultation in this period. However, public outreach is planned for the fall of this year. So we'll go back to the community with a public event and advise them of current status in terms of the design and the schedule for the project. And lastly, for subsequent events after the report period, design services, as I said, have resumed following council's decision to increase the funding. And just to note, that was to preserve the facility program and design of the rec facility. And in other matters, a tender for construction of the vocational building for Pembina Trails Collegiate, that closed on May 9th after an RFQ and tender process. And the bids are presently under review. If awarded, site work would likely begin later this year with the goal of facility handover in the spring of 2026. So once again, this is a unique situation where the city is constructing this asset as part of the ISIP agreement. And then there will be a formal handover of the asset once we are finished. And the handover is to Pembina Trails School Division. Right, that was it from my presentation this morning. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Hoto?
Thank you. First of all, class 4 estimates plus or minus how much? On a class 4 estimate, or estimate on plus or minus 30%, 50%, 100%?
Class 3 is 30%, so class 4, I believe, is the number ahead.
We don't even use the number. So it was your 5-3-1 kind of thing. Every once in a while I hear a 4 and a 2, and it's so rare, I don't understand the relevance of a 4 and a 2. To be honest with you.
Well, it's accountability again.
Class 4 is 30 under, 60 above.
Thank you.
So sorry, what's that, Councilor Lucas?
30 under, 60 above.
And what's 3?
20 under, 30 above.
Okay.
But this will be 30 below, not 30 under.
So this is still in class, so that would still remain in the class 4.
We are in a class 4 present.
Class 4 with the 30% about increase, so.
30 under the.
We will move to a class 3 later this summer. As
He was just talking about $23 million.
Okay, so that's fine. Still a little upset that the cost keeps rising. And just on that note of rising costs, did I read this report correctly? And I think I did. That yes, we had to spend extra 23 million on the Recplex for explain costs and various reasons. However, I read in this report more is coming. There's more cost overages coming in the future. Either kind of delays. Is that sound, or am I being scaremongering here a bit?
Well, I think the report conveys a risk of potential cost uncertainties, and we are very aware of that. And so in the background, this spring, the team has worked very closely with a design consultant to evaluate cost reduction opportunities. Being mindful of the fact that we don't want to impact the programmatic design of the facility. So there are other opportunities that can be investigated, such as how the structure of the building itself was designed. We've been spending time looking at these things very closely, so we can take them forward to manage this risk of cost escalation between now and tender.
I wish you the best. Thanks. Okay, that's my question.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Shire.
Sure, when you say cost escalation, the cost escalation that has already passed, or you think are we in a current state of cost escalation yet again? Not sure what you mean by, if you're talking about what that has been reported, the cost escalation that's happened so far that's in the past.
Yeah, the cost escalation in the report is to date. However, this spring, we thought we were over the COVID and global supply chain hump. However, we've seen in many of our tenders, we've had class 1 estimates that have been exceeded in the tender results. So there's still a lot of cost uncertainty, and there are factors in the market that are driving the local prices.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been talking about that before I ever heard the word COVID, and the patterns continue as I've been talking about them even before COVID and supply chain block. Having said that, I'm glad you mentioned it. So therefore, since you mentioned the global supply chain block, is that merely part of an oral report, or given you're saying that's what you're bothering to say to report as the reasonings for increases? Therefore, will that be part of a written report?
For the subsequent report, Councillor?
Well, it's the thing you bother to mention. So that's pretty big. It's the thing you bother to mention. You're saying that's the thing that's driving up our even to class 1 estimates.
Yes.
Therefore, since you're bothering to mention that in this report, will it be part of the report? Okay. Have we ever received such a report before? We have. We've received reports on supply chain blockages, and then
Overall,
well, that's what we're talking about right now orally, and that's great. It's just that, how does that apply? It's great to hear the mention of global supply chain blockages. That's great to hear the 4 words. How does it apply to the report?
Yes, okay, I understand. So going forward, we will provide commentary on cost escalation as it occurs. So what happens is when we receive an estimate on costs from a quantity surveyor, they provide commentary on the status of the local market conditions. So we have a basic understanding of what is driving costs in the local market, and you can expect that we will convey that information in subsequent reports as it occurs.
Thank you, because since we're talking about these things, since it's our obligation to hear these things and to put up our hand and pass reports on it, since you're mentioning this, excuse me, since we're getting 30% increases in how many months, years after COVID, and what was I thought being previous supply chain blockages. Since we're talking about it, if it's not written down, I'm not sure what would be the relevance of it being part of any report kind of thing. I can't help solve a problem that I don't understand. And if these are going to be the issues affecting you know, our budgets, I think it's incumbent on us to have a pretty good understanding of where it's happening. After all, we just vote in council in the last council meeting. We're going to have yet another one after decades of doing this, not new to Winnipeg City Hall, having a new analysis of operational wage and salary driven budget. Yet we're not doing anything even close to when it comes to the capital budget, which is what we're talking about right now. And so I can't pretend I understand. You said that. Nice that you mentioned global supply chain blockages and these things. And I just, what is the relevance of saying it if we're not going to get a report on it? That's all. And pardon me?
Make a motion.
Fair enough. I guess I have to question, how is it possible that systemically we go through our lives here at City Hall without it being part of the written reports? I understand we're saying these days, it's not too different from before COVID, to my understanding, it's still within the pattern that I predicted. But if it's, you know, if we're talking about these things, I just find it surprising that it wouldn't be part of the written report without a motion. But fair enough, Councillor Oliver. If that's what it takes, you know, fair enough.
Okay, Councillor Lukes.
Sure. So a couple questions here. You've got the change in scope to Diamond Schmidt was approved for the review of a pre-engineered building alternative. So just elaborate on what that is, pre-engineered building alternative.
Yes, that is the cost reduction investigation I spoke to before. Is that in a typical project situation, we follow conventions that the architects would normally undertake in a building design.
Conventions, like what?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Well, conventional approaches to structural design, so, you know, concrete or steel or wood. And so normally how we deal with a cost escalation risk is we will look at value engineering and scope reduction for easy things to take out and mitigate the cost. However, with the scale of cost risk in this project, we are looking to bigger things that need to be undertaken to match these costs. So the pre-engineered building solution is one such cost. It could potentially reduce the cost of construction on an order of magnitude of $1 million plus. This requires an investment in order to undertake this additional review. However, it's money well spent in the department's perspective because it's the best tool we have to mitigate the costs going forward.
And what about leads? What's the city's policy on a new building? What is it? What level does it have to be or should be or?
Yeah, so for new construction, there's an building area threshold. So under the threshold, lead is not required. Over the threshold, it is required.
What's the threshold?
Don't quote me, I believe it's 5,000 square meters.
And how big is this over?
Oh, well over.
Well over.
Yeah. So the lead is an absolute requirement for this project.
Is there what level of lead?
Lead, so the Winnipeg Green Building Policy mandates silver or green below. So to your point, lead elements do cost projects money. However, we also look for cost reduction opportunities in the lead aspects of the project.
Okay, so let's talk about the, I'm not concerned about the vocational school. Let's talk about the childcare facility. So that came in, well, for sure it's come in over budget than what the province projected.
Yes.
So what, just elaborate, I don't really see much of that in the risk, but that to me is a huge risk. Did you put that in the risks? I don't see it in the risks here.
Well, it was referenced at the beginning and then within the executive summary, I believe that there is a risk because they're actually that's the way you can do it. The city does not own that risk, however, because what has happened is
No, it doesn't own the risk, but it stops the building if they can't get the money together to do it.
So what has happened is the province has taken the approach where they want a completely independent facility, other than a common party wall between the rec facility and the childcare center.
Okay.
So the facilities share no mutual site servicing, no mechanical electrical systems are crossing.
Nothing.
No, so, we are not
They should have
concerned.
just built it separate.
Well, to be honest, that is an option if it happens. So we are awaiting direction from the province. We have received some indications that they are interested in scope reduction to manage their costs. However, we can proceed on with the design of the rec facility independent because of the decision that was made earlier. Okay.
So I didn't see any of that in the reports anywhere, like that's pretty significant.
Well, it's part of the project, but it's not risks that we perceive to be carried.
Okay, so it used to be a risk, but so what you're saying now is it's no longer a risk. That everything, but we have to build that.
We have to build it, but we are transferring the costs and the risk on to the province. Build it.
Right, but I'm just trying to understand how we build something. They have to approve the funding and then they have to approve who does the design? Are they doing the design or is the architect here doing the design?
Diamond Schmidt Architects is doing the design for both components of that facility, yes.
So how then, if they don't approve X amount of funding, does Diamond Schmidt just put that block on hold and continue beavering away and designing the rest of the facility and getting ready to, it can't be tendered until the childcare facility is finalized, correct?
Yeah, I mean, that's a hypothetical situation that the answer could be that, yes. So we're not enacting any plans at this time because we're expecting the province to resume design.
Well, I thought you said we're designing it.
We are designing.
Well, what are they resuming?
Their input into the design process. So we're at 30% design
Sure.
in the project.
So do you foresee, I just foresee that there'll be some drama and whatever with the childcare facility and it'll delay this rec campus. Do you foresee anything like that happening?
Well, we have contemplated that, but we have plans in place. Like we have, from the beginning, we have a staged tender process planned for the rec and childcare campus.
Okay, what's a stage tender process?
Well, in order, this decision was driven by cost management. Well, we have to allocate costs to the rec facility side. We have to allocate costs to the childcare side. So staging the components of the tender was a way to deal with that and provide cost efficiency and transparency in the project. So we can continue on with that for different reasons. If, for instance, as you say, the province does not want to proceed with the childcare for some reason, we can simply continue on with our stage or phase of the facility.
Really?
Yeah.
Build the whole thing without building the childcare facility?
Well, again, as I framed, it's in the context of the ISIP agreement. So
Yeah,
the province would have to convene with the federal government
right,
to discuss that.
right,
So again, highly hypothetical, but that is in my view a potential.
sure. So, and this is probably more of not a question for this, but, or maybe it is. In relation to, well, if they're gonna build their whole building completely independent with all their systems and firewalls and everything independent, that's what you're saying?
Correct.
So are they gonna find their own parking lot? Or how's that working out?
We will have to cross that bridge if we got to it.
Sure.
Or as for your point, the parking is fully integrated because the design.
Right. Okay, so let's just see here, what else? So now you're saying the business model and governance plan is completed
Yes,
and the business case development is completed?
yes, it is.
And just elaborate on the business model and governance plan, what exactly that is.
That really relates to the ISIP structure. So it's the principal funding agreement that drives the entire project. So that was completed by the three parties and signed off earlier this year. Now, there are other supplementary agreements that are in progress. Those relate to governance, and they translate into operational requirements once the project is complete. So those, I'm talking about the shared use agreements, for
Right.
instance, for parking and whatnot. So
So you're saying it's 100% complete, so those details are worked out then?
no, so again, the ISIP agreement has been completed and signed, but the supplementary agreements, the details of the
Right.
workings
Right.
are still in development.
And what is the business case development? What is that exactly?
Well, the business case development is really just an oversight view of the how the capital monies are allocated in the project. And I would say what's outstanding is probably operational budgets for community services that go forward. Once the facility is open, it needs to be staffed.
So from a financial perspective, when will those numbers be available to be entered into the budget process?
I can't speak to that, Councillor. Community services would have to be invited to discuss that.
Okay, last time you were here, we asked for a breakdown of the percentages of what approximately Winnipeg staff time was being allocated to provincial project. I don't see that in here.
Is that because it was the city that was taking responsibility for the planning, even for the provincial aspect of it, but the province wasn't paying us to administer or?
Yeah, so the city has to build a provincial vocational school and a provincial childcare facility, but the city is doing it.
Yeah, so that had been reported on in the previous presentation. It wasn't my understanding that was an ongoing requirement. So hence it's not included in the report.
So you're saying it was in the last report?
It's been in a previous report, or there was a further presentation by my director.
Okay, so it would be good to have it in the report on a regular basis going forward. I'd like to see it included in the report. So do I need to make a motion to do that? I guess probably. Okay. Okay, I don't have any more questions.
Okay. You have a follow-up question still, Councillor Shire?
Sure, it's really important in terms of trying to find out, since that we bothered to state, it has been stated, COVID and global supply chain blockages. Since that was stated, I think it's important for us to understand that, otherwise, what's the point in stating that? Saying that doesn't give me any greater understanding. We have her in the council chamber as well. Another way of looking at it, in the council chamber, given a reason from his worship, as an example, just in the last 6 months or 9 months, reasoning for increases due to COVID, labor costs, and other factors. Well, we have to unpack that. What does that mean? I happen to know, I'm not the only one who knows. I think it's kind of common knowledge, whether it's stated publicly often enough or not. But labor costs are amongst the lowest increases. At the time that we're talking about COVID and global supply chain, so in that respect, I would say that the average labor cost increases actually kept costs down relative to other increases. So it's one of those anchoring factors is labor costs, and we should be able to look at it that way as well. And I need to say that because this is what we're saying here at City Hall. And if we are going to make relevance of these types of reports, then, just saying global supply chain, because these are the terms we've heard officially here. Global supply chain, COVID, labor costs, and other factors. Those are the only things I've heard, and not good enough. We've got to be able to do better than that.
What are you looking for, Councillor?
Well, if it is labor costs, how is it labor costs? Then we can get into it. We know the labor costs are below the average, and because labor costs are, around a third or less than a third of costs, therefore, we know it's not labor costs. Even if they do go up, they're going up at a lower rate. Therefore, what's really pushing this? There's things that are going up at a disproportionately higher rate than labor costs, obviously, to get these costs. So if we're willing to say these things on record, I just want a greater understanding If it's global supply chain, what did it cost? What did it affect? What are those prices? Otherwise, what's the
Well, again,
point
we're
in saying
dealing
global
with,
supply
Councillor
chain?
Schreier, I mean, we're dealing with third-party contractors.
Yes,
We don't know what portion of those contractor prices are gonna be the materials versus their labor costs. We don't necessarily see that right now.
okay, but we're told it's global supply chain causes. That's what we're told.
Anecdotally, we know the
So-
cost,
so how do
anecdotally,
we
we know
know
the market, we know in the market, the cost of building X, Y, Z, the cost of whatever materials are, I mean, wire has one pricing increase, plywood has another price increase, steel has another price increase.
Mhm.
I mean,
That's fantastic. That sounds like a beginning of a great report, Council Brawai.
but we don't know like, again, because this is all third party, that's proprietary information that people who are bidding on these, you know, these different parts of the projects don't necessarily disclose to the city of Winnipeg. You know, they wouldn't whether you're, you know, Federal Express trying to build a plant or you're the city of Winnipeg building a rec complex, they don't necessarily get that level of detail.
So sounds, Council Brawai, like another excellent statement for a written report. Why it is we cannot know. I think that's really important information for this finance standing committee, as well as council, as well as the city hall, to be able to explain why we can't know. That's a pretty good explanation, Council Brawai. I haven't seen that written down. I mean, our reports, but we're willing to say supply chain, but we don't know. We say it's supply
We
chain.
can get you,
I'm sure it's a-
we can get you the transcript of this meeting if you like, it'll be on paper.
Pardon me?
We can get you the transcript of this meeting and provide it on paper if that helps.
That, well, I guess you could say that for all reports.
No, but I'm just saying, I mean, it's it's industry, it's general, it's across the board.
Right, and yet we
I don't
first,
see what value it adds to this committee to have that in writing and using our staff's time to explain to global macro economics, what's going on in the world.
well, we have to decide, we have to make our decisions for ourselves.
Sure.
What is global macro and what is not?
Well,
And where we get our information, our sources of information, and when
we're given the cost escalation. We can say yes, we can say no, we can say scale back. But in terms of, I don't see what benefit it provides to this committee to get an update on, again, if you wanna, I mean, I'll be honest here, the good taxpayers of the city of Winnipeg pay for my subscription to the Globe and Mail. Read it online, I read, what's happening in the macro economy.
Mhm.
I get the Dead Tree edition delivered to the house on Saturday and I read it over my coffee and whatever. That's a more relevant source than an admin report on the global economy and supply chains and all that.
To that extent that they can give us links in our report, that's fine. I'm a member of council, I'm a member of the standing finance committee, and on that basis, if I'm going to be being offered reports, if I'm going to be offered phrases of factors, as if, okay, we're okay now because we heard the word COVID, we heard the word supply chain, we heard the word labor costs. Well, let's explain that. If I've heard in the council chamber from his worship, it's because of labor costs and other factors. What was the point of that statement? Am I supposed to understand something from that? I mean, I need
The
to
reality is,
understand.
like, when we started specing this project, 5 years ago,
Mhm.
and again, in this case, there was some delays because of the grant program being approved by the province, so it took longer from the time that, we had initial class 5 estimate to the time that, we had things spec'd out further. There was a delay. And during that time, there were things that happened in the macro economy, the last 5 or 6 years, things have gone up more than otherwise.
And that's been the case since I got elected.
We
before
had
we
cases
approved it.
so where, on phase 2 of Bus Rapid Transit, we came in over $100 million under our estimated costs, our estimated prices, and there were savings delivered to all 3 levels of government through savings there. Again,
Are
we don't
saying
we
that-
don't hear a lot of stories, we don't hear overage reports on projects that, come in under, but it does happen from time to time.
Are you seeing those costs that you mentioned that you get on the Globe and Mail? Are you seeing that those costs went down during the period of why we had a reduction in cost compared to projection?
Well, I think it was a combination of factors that included, perhaps being burned too many times by underestimating things. They probably put a bigger cushion in there than normal. I think that, they were estimating probably more inflation than that actually happened during that time. And I think due to the unique delivery model of the P3 that had incentives for the proponent to deliver an innovative project, they found ways to combine it. I think a bridge structure was part of it. A pedestrian and a rail bridge or some type of bridge structure, they found savings in delivering results we wanted at a lower cost to taxpayers. So
I recall you're talking about that, Council Brawadi, in my second or third year in council, my first term, talking about that, but that's only based on what would be the
I think
projection.
we're diverting a little bit here a little bit. Is there anything specifically in this update that you need further detail on?
There is disagreement on council, by words I've heard publicly, both in the standing committee and the council chamber, as to what is causing this. We are the biggest contractor in the city, and and we're accountable not only to council, to the taxpayer for it. And if we can't do that, then how are we supposed to do our jobs? So yes, I understand, Council Brawadi, that these items are there in the publication on the internet. And the issue is, since we're the biggest contractor around, how do we do the best job? Well, who's bigger than the city of Winnipeg? I mean, the province of Manitoba Hydro, fair enough. These ones that are crown corporations and are directly responsible to the taxpayer who pays for it with taxes, not through the private market. And on that basis, we've got special obligations to question as people, these citizens. No, at this point, I guess we went on quite the tangent here. I'm thanking Council Brawadi. I appreciate it. We were talking about, I also heard Council Luke say there was actually a savings somewhere. I didn't quite catch it. I know we're talking about a $23 million increase, which is about a 30% increase. That was based on, was that a class 4 estimate?
Correct.
On a class 4 estimate, and a class 4 estimate can be, how much can a class estimate be?
Minus 30 to plus 60.
The plus 60. So because we were at plus 30 something, we're still within the class 4. Okay, fair enough. There's a lot to say. Good meeting. I'll leave it at that for now. Thank you, Chair Brawadi.
Okay, thank you very much. Somebody there to move this report.
I'll move it with an amendment, and I just wanted to make sure that the amendments, so that the staff gets it, we're on the same page. So this would be, what I think how I think we would word it. To include in each report going forward, an estimation of total city staffing costs associated with vocational school and childcare facility. Does that sound, I'm just looking at Mr. Panuta, does that sound okay to put in the report? Is that? Okay.
I'm okay with that. Okay, Mr. by the clerk. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Report number 4, North District Police Station.
Right. This is quarterly report number 23, also for the same period, April 30th. So construction is actually just winding down now on the project. The very last site works are underway. There's been a bit of delay due to the weather. However, landscaping, paving, whatnot is going in, and the building is essentially finished at this point in time. It was expected to wrap up this month. However, the weather has pushed us out, and we expect the facility to achieve total performance mid-August. In the context of the report, I did identify that there was an expenditure related to rebuilding the former Old X community gardens. Those were taken down to make way for the new police station. And so commitment was made on early in the project to reconstruct those gardens. And that is being undertaken by Public Works. Also, I did reference the lay claim that was issued by the contractor against the city. This was in relation to the lay receiving permits. And so that claim has been processed, and monies will become payable to the contractor. The construction contract overall has increased by just over $1 million. That's actually a reduction from the first report, and this is because credits issued for other work. So that amount, $1,094,000, that equates to 4% of the original contract payment. All those additional monies were paid out as the contingencies previously approved by council. And at the time of report preparation, $480,000 remained in that contingency allocation. Actual costs to date are 27.03 million, and that's on budgets in the overall allocation capital 31.73 million. In terms of schedule, as I said, there's no changes to report other than a minor delay for weather. And we do expect the project to conclude in August, after which there will be an opening of the facility in the fall, and then a 2-year warranty period commences for the closeout.
And a 2-year, sorry?
2-year warranty period.
Okay.
Okay, and just finally, for subsequent events, the building, as I said, is complete. Furniture deliveries have been underway. And if you're to drive by the site, we're just finishing up landscaping work. And nothing further to report today.
Excellent.
Chairperson.
You're gonna have modern police stations throughout the city, later this year. Pretty cool. So, Councillor Lukes first.
So just because it's just not jumping out at me clearly. So the amended budget, so the thing is costing 31.730 million, correct?
Correct.
And so that's what it's costing. And what did we budget for it?
It was previously 23.4 million.
Right, so it came in over budget. Okay, all right, we found that for the police station. Great, okay. Yeah, no, this is great. I have no questions.
Okay, Councillor Track.
Sure, thanks. So in this case, the sale, sorry, what can you say about the old station's sale?
Yes, so you're referring to the current station on Hartford Avenue.
Yeah.
So once the police service move into the new facility, at some point in time in the near future, that property in Hartford will be declared surplus to the needs of the city. And then I assume there will be a declaration of sale by real estate.
And the sale, it goes into the Marski Ward, 50% point of this, 50% through the land dedication reserve funds.
That's correct. That was adopted, I believe it was early this year or late last.
All right. And so you'll be, the intention is to move in as early as August with the official opening in September?
Correct, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, somebody prepared to move this?
I'll
Thank you, Councillor Shire. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Report number 5, St. Intel over the red.
Okay, for this report update, Brad Muir, and Manager of Engineering from Public Works, and Jason Ruby, the Finance Manager of Public Works, will provide the update.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning. So this is the 7th quarterly report for this project. Total expenditures to date have been about 34 million, and the project budget was increased to about $59.9 million. That's a result of $2.3 million being adopted as part of the 2024 capital budget. And we expect the work to be completed within that budget amount. The road during the reporting period, which was to April 30th, 2024, the roadworks was dormant during that reporting period, but the bridge work was ongoing. There was deck demolition works being undertaken during that period. Since that period, we're now undertaking deck construction, and there's been several concrete pours on that deck now, and roadworks is ongoing again. So that would conclude the update for now.
Okay, questions? Yeah, questions, folks?
Okay, just so that I'm clear on this one too, what this project came in at, or was estimated at what price?
So originally the budget's been increased by 7.3 million.
How much?
7.3. During the 2023 capital budget process, we could see that prices were starting to come in higher, so we reallocated funding within the regional and local program for the roadworks and added 5 million. And then the extra 2.3 million is a result of other things that have happened, like pure stability works that occurred that were required that we totally unanticipated.
Was that, and that included hydro and the lights and that too?
Yeah, there was higher than anticipated costs with lighting. Normally, Hydro would have the design done before we tendered for lighting, but in that case, they had their designer pass away, so it got deferred. The lighting got deferred, and then Hydro decided that they're no longer going to undertake designs for pathway lighting, so we had to do that later as well. So we've got all those costs in for pathway lighting and everything. They've actually come in better than we anticipated by $50,000 for that, and about another $150,000 for the transformers and things like that to power the pedestrian underpath lighting.
And when do you expect it to completely be done?
So both bridges should be open to traffic by the end of the year.
End of the year.
But by November, October, November. But the work will continue through the winter and into about July of next year. And that's mainly like, there's seal girder painting works that are being undertaken, as well as some other landscaping works and things like that that will be finished by July of 2025.
Okay. Super.
Okay, any other questions? Ready for a motion? Councilor Rocco, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Thank you, gentlemen. Number 6, General Revenue Fund Forecast Deficit Action Plan.
And with that, I have John Spidell, who is the corporate controller who helped us through the report.
Okay, thanks, Tracy. Good morning, John.
Good morning, Councilor Barati. Morning, councilors. So thank you, Tracy. And I will now take the committee through the March 31st, 2024 General Revenue Fund Forecast Deficit Action Plan. The report identifies the action to be taken by administration to address the $39.3 million deficit that was identified at the financial status and forecast report as of March 31st, 2024. That was presented to the committee on June 14th, 2024. Lots of things to go through there. So as a recap, the 2024 budget had contributions being made from the General Revenue Fund to the Financial Stabilization Reserve Fund. Given that the General Revenue Fund is forecasting a deficit, this action plan would suspend these transfers, roughly about $16 million. This will reduce the forecasted deficit down to $23.3 million, but it will also reduce the FSR down to $15.7 million, still leaving a shortfall of $7.6 million. To address this shortfall with minimal impact on service delivery, additional funds from Treasury through diligent debt management and positive market results has been identified. With deferral of debt, we anticipate about $2.8 million in savings, and this is coupled with additional interest earnings of about $4 million. We should see the majority of the shortfall covered by our Treasury LP. The remaining $800,000 will be funded with individual departments by managing expenditures and vacancies with a focus on not affecting service to the public. As mentioned in the report, there is a risk of other financial targets such as snow and ice control costs, overtime costs, or budgeted corporate efficiencies that may not be met. So that concludes my report.
Okay. Councilor
Does how would you put this? The debt increase, is that going to influence funding that would otherwise go into the fiscal stabilization fund?
Not on the debt side. So the savings that we see on interest costs is because we're deferring when we're taking out our debt. So instead of taking out our debt earlier in the year, we're able to actually defer that and take that out later in the year, saving that $2.8 million.
Later in the year, so it's in a new budget year or
No, still, I think it's still forecasted for 2024, but probably the fourth quarter versus earlier.
okay. So I gotta say, I don't really understand. So it's just gonna happen later in the year. What's gonna happen later in the year, sorry?
Taking out debt, like issuing debt.
Okay, and if that's the case, would that be, what do you call that, contra, what's the term we use for that?
Well, debt's a liability. Yeah, on the balance sheet, so.
Okay, but in terms of expectation for the year, we're not going to do as well as we had anticipated.
From a budget perspective,
Pardon me?
from a budget perspective, correct, yes, yeah, and we are behind our budget.
And is that going to influence that specifically? Is that going to influence the amount of money that was planned to go into the fiscal stabilization fund?
Yes, yeah, definitely.
Okay, so this is affecting the city's fiscal stabilization.
Yeah, so after we're finished with this action plan, the plan includes the financial stabilization reserve to be at 0 at the end of the year. So
Because of,
the deficit that we're facing.
and the deficit is coming from, what is the full deficit? It's going down to 0? It's going to go to.
Yeah,
zero?
so with the action plan, we'll be able to take the deficit of the general revenue fund from the $39.3 million that we reported last committee down to 0.
Okay.
So that's the three steps that I've mentioned in this plan, plus the drawdown of the financial stabilization reserve.
Okay, and you're attributing this primarily to what?
So on the previous report that we talked about on the forecasted, and I know you weren't at the last meeting, but we talked about basically there was 4 areas. And let me just recap for you. So Winnipeg Fire Paramedic Service cost overruns of $12.7 million, and that's due to primarily overtime and workers' compensation costs. Higher than expected expenditures in Winnipeg Police by about 11.3 million. But on the good side, they had revenue that offset it, so we're only showing about 6.7 million shortfall there. Public Works has higher than expected costs of 10.5 million, primarily for snow clearing and ice control, and lower than expected permit fees and the other revenue in property planning and development of 8.4 million were the main contributors to the deficit.
But so these are not, these are different from what our projections were. How do they compare to last year in terms of actuals? You're saying fire was 13 million more than expected. Is it 13 million more than last year?
See if I have that number for you.
That's fair enough. Because I mean, I'm not against us having forecasts or forecasts, you know, what we expect to be spending. I don't know to what extent, these are arbitrary, right? We have reasons for why, we're gonna save money this time. It's gonna be cheaper next year. We don't do that for all sectors, of course. But we do it for some. So they may have saved money. They just didn't save as much as we expected, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so for fire, there's 13 million over expectation. How much are they over last year?
Yeah, I don't have those numbers with me, but I can definitely follow up with you after the meeting.
Okay.
Get you that.
And for police services, they are 7 million or so above expectation, but they may have saved money compared to last year, just not as much as we are expecting them to.
Yeah, correct. So police are basically, there's almost $7 million over on their revenue. And a lot of it has to do with, I shouldn't say a lot, but some of it has to do with their services that they provide to retail outlets. So, yeah, the special constable. So we get more revenue for that, but also then we see more expenses, right? So there's a bit of an offset, but it's still a positive result for the city.
Okay. Do we have any, I know it sounds like a silly question, it's just that in context, I mean, people can have the misperception that firefighters are 13 million over budget, but 13 million over an expectation. The expectation could be unrealistic. I'm just saying that can't be the case. So
Again,
pardon me?
during COVID, we, had a lot of overtime because of obviously if somebody in the house had a sniffle, they were
Yeah.
off.
Yeah.
It's been reported in the media. A full complement of firefighters on any given point is 167 firefighters. We staff 1.3 times the amount we need. So we have 217 firefighters to cover off any shift. We need 167 on. According to Chief Schmidt, we have to call in on overtime 10 to 15 at any given time. So we're only seeing between 152 and 157 showing up when we're paying for 217.
Okay.
So what that means is, we're basically seeing about 70% of people showing up at any given time. Sure, they're entitled to their vacations and all that other stuff, but we do have some trouble with firefighters showing up for work. So, continuing to work with the chief is certainly working on this.
And this has been going on since COVID?
Well, we had a lot of overtime challenges during COVID, and I was very, on this committee, you were here, Counselor. We understood that, somebody in the household has a sniffle, they had to stay home. It was just the reality of the COVID protocols at the time. So we weren't really holding them to account on their overtime. Now I'm really getting worked up about the fact that there seems to be a lot of overtime on fire.
And COVID apparently, from what we hear, is still affecting construction inflation, construction costs too. That I don't have my head around. We can discuss that, but at least in terms of the operational one, we're in a position to discuss it. Okay. There lies the difference. So we had expectations of savings in firefighters, police officers. What were our expectation in savings from construction costs?
The construction costs would be on the capital side, and that would be part of the general review.
Okay, but we don't have any expectations of savings in construction, in the construction industry, in our construction projects.
I don't know how to answer that question, Counselor.
Well, I'm gonna go out there and say we don't. We are expecting to go up at the highest rate ever. And we're looking for expectations of savings in our operational budget. I'm gonna say that's really close to this, the absolute reality of it.
When you see savings, that's the hard part, right? Like
Yeah.
I expect, and my expectations are that we get the best price for the things that we buy through the purchasing policies that we have in the city.
And that's the constant challenge. And in that, regardless of our values, which I respect, but regardless of our values and opinions, just objectively, whatever we apply those to, the reality of things, there has been, nor are we objectively projecting, regardless of our values and opinions, we're not projecting any savings in the construction industry or a reduction of costs.
There may be on the capital side when the budget is put together for capital, but that would be back to the budget.
Could you give me an example of what that might be since you offered to mention?
Well, I would probably refer that back to the budget working group as far as where the spending is going to be done on the capital side.
Okay.
But I mean, there's commodity prices that fluctuate. Like, I mean, gasoline is probably an easy one to look at. Where the prices go up, it costs us more. The prices go down, then we can save some. But that's something that's really beyond our control, right? So from a planning perspective, you try to plan your contingencies so then that way if prices go up, that you have enough kind of set aside in order to meet your budget.
Okay, so just in terms of the relevance of this, when you look at why we're raising everybody's fines, fees, taxes, rates, and the levies, and we're looking for efficiencies, we're looking for savings. We have some expectations, but they don't apply in any specific way or shape or form to where our greatest increase in our budget is. That's construction costs.
That's on the capital side, Councillor Shine.
Yes, but then you have to include as well, because on the operational side, we've got street repair. Street repair is operational, even though it's an interesting one because it's still capital intensive. So that's an unusual aspect of the city budget. Well, it's not that unusual. It's an exception. It's definitely capital intensive, but it's definitely part of the operational side. And there I would suggest there is a place where you can kind of get a sense of increase in the operational budget due to capital.
Thank you very much, Councillor.
Thank you.
Monaco.
So I'm not sure if I held my tongue at all, but I may have. So do you know off the top of your head the purpose of the fiscal stabilization reserve?
Yes, I do.
Please, I'd like to hear it. It sounds like we're all.
Okay, so Fletch might be asking that question, Councillor Orr. So, and I don't know if you were here at this meeting or not, but it was an administrative report, and I think it was done in 2011 to City Council with respects to the merging of
2011?
2011.
Remember that? You remember that meeting, right?
Oh, that's on the Thursday or the Thursday?
It was September the 15th.
That's okay.
To be exact, so.
Fair enough.
Basically, the report talked about merging the financial stabilization reserve and the mill rate stabilization reserve fund into one new financial stabilization reserve.
Okay.
So at that time, the purpose is to counteract the budgetary effects of fluctuations from year to year in property and business taxes, and to fund deficits in the general revenue fund to assist in the stabilization of the city's mill rate and or property tax requirements.
Okay, I hear you. So the first part I understood, that that's what the fiscal stabilization reserve was for, brought, I think it was the 80s, and we had a huge reassessment problem, pretty well wiped us out. And so that's what it was before, not a general revenue fund. Which
And I
we
think
now
that's
have.
what came from like the mill rate stabilization reserve fund.
So
That's where that second part came.
So the second part is, we don't want to raise taxes, so we're just going to use this now, we're going to wipe out our fiscal stabilization reserve. So, because we don't want to, if nothing, surprise, we knew it was coming, but we also don't have any other sources of funding, so we just will have no fiscal, as we found out this year, zero again. We're going to have no safety net, and we're just going to use this as the general debt to mitigate the fact that we're not raising taxes or fees or anything like that. There's not enough money coming into the system for the amount of expenses we're setting up. So it's more of there ain't no, am I correct in assuming there is no more really fiscal stabilization reserve? This is the general reserve.
No, this is the financial stabilization reserve. That's the term.
It's a term,
No,
but it's
that's
not,
fine.
but it's not for this only, it's not for the emergencies. I understood what you're using it for COVID. That to me was a legitimate reason to start using the fiscal stabilization reserve, even though I thought the nuclear QP agreement, how to pay for it was a little bit out of the bounds, but okay, well, we're past COVID now.
But it's there to basically be like a ballast to the general revenue fund. So then if we do see, as we do this year, a deficit, then we can draw it down on the stabilization. So it buys us a little bit of time from a budgeting perspective. So next year, when we develop the 2025 budget, then those factors can be considered, and then, you know, council can take a look at those types of decisions, whether it's tax increases, fees increases, or what have you.
Or just keep not
Or
having
keep it.
fiscal stabilization reserve, bidding money's in there. So we put $10 in and we take out 15 and stuff. It's like, okay, thank you for the answer. I appreciate that. I don't agree with it, but I appreciate it. So the other one you said in the four pockets of issues that came up with revenue, lack of permit revenue.
Yes.
And I'll be meeting as soon as I can with Graham to go over this. So the Housing Accelerator Fund, we're going to be looking at a minimum of somewhere around $10 million in reduction in the permit fees that they're going to collect out of the P&D department. That's my analysis, and I'd be more happy to share that with anybody. I could do that yesterday, but it wasn't allowed. So have you taken into the impacts, and I haven't figured out center plan. I heard yesterday in the meeting that went on and on and on about this. I thought it was just the 8.3 million that we're ticking down the line, so it can be done in the budget season. Where we find that money, I have no idea. We don't have nothing left in fiscal stabilization reserve, but that's fine. We'll get there. But my question is, have you calculated all the other ones as a risk going forward, where it's 5 million, 10 million, 50 million, whatever it is? We already know that the land dedications are getting wiped out completely from mature neighborhoods. It's just the fact we can't collect land dedication if we don't have rezonings or subdivisions. So those are as of right. So that money's gone. And then the developers, about $20,000 in applications, what I've estimated. That's their savings. Like they're gonna, and so some people said, well, that's gonna reduce housing prices. Yeah, right. That's the developers are, oh, I'm gonna reduce it $20,000 because the city was so nice to me. Yeah, I'll believe that when I see it. Okay. So again, I see it as a big risk. You've already mentioned it's one big risk. Have you guys, as a department, looked at that risk yet? And the overall financial, as I mentioned, it's typical council of Hawaii. We haven't met yet. I don't know why, but we reached out. Have your department looked at this kind of numbers yet?
So the property planning or planning property and development department, finance forecast put together by Mike Begin. He's the manager of finance there. And we sent you the response from him with respects to how the forecast was constructed for Q1, and it does not include an impact for half.
Right,
So,
so we don't have, that's an unknown at this point.
yeah, so what I'll do is if you care to share the information with me that you have, then I'm happy to.
I'll be meeting with, I'll be making a meeting with CFO.
You know, then we'll make sure that that is incorporated into our Q2 forecast and
And then we'll go from there.
Specifically to the Q1, I mean, I appreciate your concerns about the upcoming changes with HAP and future lost revenues. For Q1, there was some impact with the changes to the Manitoba Building Code.
Yeah.
It's well understood that there were a lot of applications that came in December to try and beat the new code.
Yep. I saw that. Like right now, I believe our applications are a little bit lower because they're all waiting to, well, I guess it'd be on the 18th when we pass the budget 2, the third reading, if it does pass, which I'm assuming it will. Then you'll see applications go up the roof because they're waiting right now. But they're hovering around 650. They're estimating at this point, but I'm sure it'll go a little bit higher because it's down from the 950
650
applications. Yeah, so it's down from the 900-ish, but that's, again, I don't look like looking at 1 year to 1 year, you have to look over the 5-year mark. But I am very concerned that losing $10 million without a plan to replace it will have to come somewhere.
yeah,
Because it's a revenue-based business there, and either you have to reduce the P&D staff, which I've heard no way they want to do that, because you don't have the work, so you shouldn't have staff. Well, that's not gonna happen, and if there is a plan, that's great, but $10 million besides wiping out LDR from mature neighborhoods, the idea, but you can't collect it anymore, there's nowhere, so I'm hoping with the motion I put forward, it's in the queue now, that we'll understand that we've gotta somehow, these are community grants that we're gonna lose, let alone, and then on the backside, all of a sudden, we're gonna have another, $6 million hole in P&D, and that'll be added to the $8 million we just sent off to the budget working group. So I'm getting concerned about all these costs that are escalating on this side, which are gonna make real nasty budget decisions for who's ever on the working group. So I will keep following up, but you've answered my questions well. Thank you very much.
Councilor Shire.
Just to recap, so I can get out of the meeting understanding, when it comes to the general revenue fund forecast, the deficit action plan, when we talk specifically about fire and paramedics and Winnipeg Police Services. We were leaving this meeting not knowing whether they saved money from last year, whether their budget has decreased. We're just basing it on what our expectations were. It's more than our expectations were, not in actuality.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. That's a really important, extremely important,
and as mentioned.
because we don't even know whether to say hats off to Winnipeg Police Services or not, or to the fire and paramedics, because they may have saved some money and it's not being acknowledged in this meeting. All we said was they didn't save as much as we expected them to. What, and therefore, what am I supposed to do about that? Like, warriors, what am I supposed to say? You guys are inefficient. Like, what am I supposed to say? How am I supposed to judge that?
Yeah, no, I'll get you that information. I'll get it for the committee councilors.
For the committee, fair enough.
Thanks.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Somebody ready to move this report?
So moved.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
It's carried. Somebody want to move consent and adjournment? All in favor, opposed, carried.
Thanks.
Have a great summer, everybody. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, right on. It's a lot of fun.
Community committee.